That baffled me. It baffled everybody. I think that I could give you a response to that. I had just come back from Laredo and didn't know about the story in the paper. I received an irate, angry phone call from one of my parishioners who's a prominent member in the city and really was angry at the city council. Now, I have heard that that wasn't quite as blatant as some say. So, you know, but nonetheless, it was baffling. It was hard to understand. I think that's all I could say about it. I was taken aback by it, and I was really curious, and I wanted to have some answers as to what was the basis of the support. How could one possibly support a situation where it involves, you know, this kind of doctoring of the truth? Well, that's an interesting question, because when you look at the last city council meeting, one has to be very circumspect about that, because that baffled everybody. Again, people were baffled by it and very, very upset. I mean, these were people from the business community, these were bankers, these were people in the religious community that I know, Catholic and Protestant. These were people in the educational community. What happened in that meeting? But the other aspect is that we all have to understand that there are legal procedures that have to be followed, and as they go through the entire process, at times the only thing you could do is sit there in silence. And it becomes a very important thing, because I've been in that myself on a board, and sometimes you just sit there and you listen, and you have to wait until you have everything together before you can really speak to the issue. And so I think this may have been the situation in which the city council found itself at that moment. Again, I'm not exactly sure, but it seems to me that that's quite possible. Now, have they been ethical in it? I think if you say, I support this person no matter what, because this is a matter of factionalism in the city, and it's one person against another, or one group against another, that is essentially irrelevant. It may be true, it may be unfortunate, but people are not judging this on the basis of factionalism and whether he's being personally attacked because someone is against him. They're looking at the ethical issues here and the question of honesty and the legality. Those are the issues, nothing else. Nothing else is of any consideration at all. Well, obviously not. You know, someone hands in there could have been some person who would have had excellent qualifications and maybe not as spectacularly qualified as was written in this resume for for our present city manager. And so this person didn't get the job specifically for that reason. We vet people specifically, and it's a legal process. There's also an ethical obligation to vet people fairly based on the truth. And so any employer has to do this. And so of course, this is a very serious issue, especially with respect to justice as applied to those who did in fact apply for the job with good qualifications. I would honestly say that I don't know. This seems to me to enter into an area of ambiguity, because I am a newcomer to Eagle Pass, and maybe some people think I'm even speaking too much for someone who is so new to the city. But nonetheless, I mean, these are just universal ethical issues, and actually, that apply anywhere and everywhere. But here the issue is for Eagle Pass. I think the city is really is growing rapidly, and you see a lot of progress, a lot of good things happening here in the city. And I don't think that that necessarily will impact upon the city. You know, every city has its history, and you find these issues popping up everywhere all over the country, and even worse in other places in the world as well, and sometimes in spectacular manner. So I don't know how much that's really going to affect the city. Well, you know, that's again one of the complicated issues, and I don't know that that would necessarily impact upon it if there's an honest mistake being made, as we all can make. And it seems that, that this could be quite the possibility, and we have to give people, we have to cut people slack in those issues. So I think that some person could make a mistake, even make a mistake in a statement that they make, and then realize that this was in the wrong direction. This was wrong-headed, that this was with insufficient evidence whatever the issues are, or it could be because of other things too, even having to do with, I say, legal issues of procedure, that we cannot withdraw our support from him until we have clear evidence that has a legal basis to it, because that would be an injustice to the city manager. And so there's really two sides of that story. And I think we have to understand that people who are in their position have to be very careful on how they approach an issue like that and not immediately make statements. So because, as I say, if any of this were false, it would be a grievous injustice against the city manager. So this is something that they have to deal with because of the position that they're in. I don't think that this necessarily impacts on the issue of honesty in relationship to the children. That was an issue for the ministers. We want our youth to be given examples of honesty and integrity by our leadership. You know, given that everyone has their faults, you know, and their warts and carbuncles, you know, but nonetheless, basically speaking, people are struggling to be honest and to be straightforward. And so this becomes a serious issue for our youth, that our youth are given clear, you know, example of this kind of behavior.